I cut the front, the back yoke, the waistband, the belt loops, the waistband facing, the back pockets, the pocket lining, and the pocket watch. All the pieces are cut out of the main fabric except for the waistband facing and the pockets. Now that all the pattern pieces are cut, I'm going to start sewing. So the first step is to cut notches on the pattern pieces of the pockets and pocket facings. After that, I'm going to be attaching the pattern faces onto the pockets and sew along the curved edge with a zigzag stitch. I'm hemming the pocket with the 2 lines of sewing across the top. Turn the seam side under, finger press it, and then pin it to the front using the pattern as a template. Attach the yoke to the back pants, and I flip one side of the seam to the opposite side. This is just so that there's not a lot of bulk here. And then to do the top stitching, I'm going to clip that seam, making sure not to clip into the sewing, so that I can flip them both to the same side, because I'm going to do the top stitching on that side along here. And that way there's less bulk right here in the middle. And then after I do that one, I'm going to do the top stitching along this side with the facing, with this, what do you call this, the seam down, so that when I do the top stitching, it's catching the seam. And I'm just going to do one line of top stitching on each side. So I did my top stitching on this side, and then the double stitching on this side. I don't like how that came out, so I'm going to be picking this and redoing it again. Okay, now that the back is together, we'll be attaching the back to the sides. Again, matching the notches. Make sure you're catching the pocket. And I'm going to be sewing along both seams on both sides. I'll be doing that off camera. I've sewn the sides together. And then I'm going to press with the seam facing towards the back. And then I will be doing a top stitching along each side on the back leg of the pants. Mark your left side and your right side so that you know which side of the fly goes on top, and also the position of your waistband. So just to review, I've attached the pockets, and before I attach the waistline, the waistband, I did the front fly, top stitched it. I used a double needle in this case, and the right side according to the pattern. And then I attached this part of the waistband, attached the facing, and did a little stitch over the facing, catching the seam so that when you fold it, it's nice and you don't see the facing. It lies nice and flat. So the next step is going to be, I'm going to fold this down. Notice how I left the seam line here folded. First I'm going to trim this off and then fold this wrong sides together and fold this over just a little bit so it doesn't show, and then I'm going to make a stitch down this here and then turn it out, flip it over, and the waistband will be complete. Same thing on the other side. So I trimmed the seam here, I overstitched it along the facing so it folds nice, and then I pressed it after I turned it over. So we're almost done. The next step is to close this part. Make sure that you don't do it like this. You have to match it to the legs. And then you're going to stitch here. And then the next step is going to be your top stitching. I'm going to start from here all the way up, around, all the way around to the other side, come back and finish. You can always start it on this side too if you don't want, if you want it to look nicer in the front. So here it is, nice and finished. I started here, went all the way up, around, and came back and finished here. And see how nice that is, and you don't have to struggle to try and finish it. And then the back, making sure you're catching the lining. Then push the seam to that side on the bottom and top stitch along the front crotch area and make a little zigzag stitch right here just to reinforce this area. I marked and pressed my hem. Then I'm going to serge along the bottom and then top stitch. Before I top stitch the hem, I press it up like this so that I can sew along that crease, making sure that I catch the entire hem. You can always press it flat later. And I'm also going to be using a twin needle here so it looks nice and straight. So I glue basted all my belt loops, and while that's drying, I'm going to work on closing up the final step, which is closing up the entire the pants. So I'm gonna pin them closed. Then I will stitch the seam. From one leg to the next. Usually I just start at the bottom, go up, then go to the crotch, and then start at the bottom from the other side and go up and close the crotch. And after I do that, I will serge my seams. Okay, almost done. I did a little top stitch here just to fold the seam towards the back. It's just a nice little finishing touch. You can always press it and it'll be fine. So the next step is to attach the belt loops, and now that they're nicely folded, all I do is I attach them on the top with a tiny zigzag stitch across the top and across the bottom. And I usually do them one at a time while at the machine, but I'm just gonna pin them just to show you. Okay, so I've attached my belt loops, a little tiny zigzag stitch on top, on bottom. And then all that's left to do is cut your little whiskers if you haven't done them. I usually make sure I cut all my threads while I'm sewing so that I don't have a lot of threads hanging later on, because it's quite annoying. So that's all done, and now all that's left to do is to put the snap on. And the way I do it is I use these little metal snaps. You can use sew in a snap, but I use the other one. So what I do is I put it together. I make my hole through all the layers, and I'm gonna do this off camera because I don't want to mess that up. My very last step. So here they are, all finished.